Originally built for an Olympic dream that never happened, Estadio La Cartuja was left empty, forgotten, and almost torn down. But now it's back, bigger, better, and ready for action. This is the incredible comeback of Spain's most talked about stadium. Get ready, it's going to be an exciting story. Alright, let's go back to the 90s. Seville had a dream, a hot, sunny, Olympic-sized dream. The plan? Build a stadium so amazing that Olympic bosses would take one look and say, yep, give the games to Seville. That's exactly how Estadio La Cartuja was born. They started building it in the late 1990s, full of hope and excitement. This wasn't going to be just any stadium, no way. This was going to be Spain's next big thing. A modern, massive arena with over 57,000 seats, a running track, and a design that looked like it came out of the future. It opened in May of 1999, just in time for the World Athletics Championships, and honestly, it looked great. There were lights, cheering crowds, speeches, and lots of big promises. People were proud, and the dream felt real. But then, it didn't happen. Seville didn't get the Olympics, not in 2004, not in 2008, not ever. Oops! So now there was this huge stadium, but no big events, no Olympic Games, and worse, no football team wanted to move in. Both Seville FC and Real Betis already had their own stadiums, thank you very much. And what do you want with a giant empty stadium that nobody really needs? Not much. So it sat there looking fancy and kind of useless. It hosted a few concerts, an occasional football final, maybe an international match every now and again, but most of the time it was just empty. The running track, which was supposed to be a good thing, turned out to be a big problem. Fans felt too far from the action. The stadium didn't have that exciting football feeling. It was like watching a match, but from the parking lot. And year by year, things got worse. By 2018, people started calling it a waste of money. Engineers said the roof needed fixing. Some even wanted to tear the whole place down. So from Olympic hopes to almost getting knocked down, that's how far Estadio La Cartuja had fallen. But just when it seemed like the end, something unexpected happened, and that's where the real story begins. Stick around, because this ghost stadium is about to make one of the most epic comebacks you'll ever see. By the mid-2000s, La Cartuja had picked up a nickname, El Elefante Blanco, or the White Elephant. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, a white elephant is supposed to be something special, right? Well, not in this case. La Cartuja was a huge, fancy stadium that had a big problem. It had no real purpose. Seville FC and Real Betis, the two top football clubs in Seville, didn't want anything to do with it. They both already had their own stadiums, Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan and Benito Villamarin, and they were both happy where they were, so Cartuja was left alone. No football games, no big events. It wasn't really used for anything. The stadium was just there, standing empty and collecting dust. Then things took a turn for the worst. In 2018, engineers came in to check the stadium, and when they found out the roof needed repairs, and when I say major, I meant it was going to cost a ton of money to fix, they decided to close the stadium for repairs. One official said the stadium was in technical ruin. That sounds pretty bad, right? Let's look at where things stood by then. No home team, no one was using it regularly. Olympic rejection, Seville did not get the Olympics. Structural problems, the roof needed expensive repairs. Expensive upkeep, keeping the stadium up and running was costing a bunch of money. No real purpose, it was just an empty building. What started as a modern masterpiece had turned into a big joke. People were making fun of the stadium, saying it was a waste of money and effort. Seville's grand plans for the stadium just weren't working out. But hold on, that was about to change. Just when it looked like La Cartuja was headed for the same dusty future as MySpace, something surprising happened. In Feb of 2020, the Spanish Football Federation, RFEF, stepped in and threw the stadium a lifeline. They signed a deal to hold 4 Copa del Rey finals at La Cartuja. It was more than just paperwork. It was like giving CPR to a stadium that was barely alive, and people started paying attention again. And then the pandemic hit. Everything changed. Football tournaments were scrambling to adjust. One of the biggest problems? Bilbao couldn't promise fans for the delayed Euro 2020 matches. UEFA needed a backup plan. And guess who got the call? La Cartuja. The stadium that no one wanted suddenly became Spain's savior. It went from forgotten to famous basically overnight. And you know what? It delivered. The games were exciting, loud, full of passion. Fans, even though they were still sitting a bit too far from the action because of that old running track, brought life back into the place. For the first time in years, La Cartuja felt alive again. And then came the big news. In October of 2023, FIFA announced Spain, Portugal, and Morocco would host the 2030 World Cup together. That one sentence changed everything for La Cartuja. Suddenly, this once-ignored stadium became a key player. Why? Because it's huge, modern, and located in a beautiful tourist-filled city, Seville. And here's the kicker. It doesn't belong to just one club. No permanent tenant means total flexibility. Need a World Cup venue? Need a neutral site for a final? Need a mega concert location? La Cartuja could be all of that. What started as a failure was starting to look like a secret weapon. So fast forward to July of last year, the moment when things really started to get interesting. The once forgotten, crumbling, and very outdated La Cartuja was about to undergo the ultimate makeover. And no, this wasn't some run-of-the-mill renovation. Oh no, this was a total transformation. The plan? To turn this former white elephant into a World Cup-worthy stadium in record time. And they weren't playing around. They had a budget of 15 million euros, that's 15.7 million US dollars, which is kind of a bargain in the world of sports stadiums, but we'll get to that in a second. The timeline? 8 months. Yeah, you heard that right. 8 months to pull off this massive renovation. The pressure was on, but let's be real. If anyone could pull it off, it was this crew. And here's what they did. First off, they said goodbye to the athletic track. Good riddance, right? That track, while useful for Olympic aspirations, has been one of the biggest complaints from fans for decades. Fans sitting miles away from the action? Not so cool, so out it went. Then they got serious about getting the fans closer to the field. They lowered the pitch by 5 meters. Yes, you heard that right, 5 meters. This made space for a whole new lower-tier seating area. No more watching from the nosebleeds. Now, 15,000 fans would be sitting closer to the action, and you better believe that dramatically changed the sightlines. The atmosphere would be electric, not a quiet echo. But it didn't stop there. The whole experience had to be upgraded, so the stadium got a complete facelift in terms of facilities. Talking new toilets, upgraded concessions, and swanky hospitality suites that are now up to UEFA's 5-star standards. Think of it like a stadium that's been pampered with the best of everything. And the outside? Oh yeah. The entrances were redesigned and the exterior functionality was improved, making the place look sharp and fit for a 21st century mega event. It was like giving La Cartuja a fresh new outfit, perfect for all its new responsibilities. What's even crazier, they did all this without tearing the stadium down. That's right, no need to demolish anything and start from scratch. Just some really smart architecture by the legendary Cruz y Ortiz. The same architects who did Seville's Santa Justa train station and Real Madrid's training facilities. This wasn't just a random team, they were bringing their A-game. The result of all this? A stadium that's now got a capacity of 70,000 for football matches with the ability to hold up to 75,000 for concerts and events. That makes La Cartuja the third largest stadium in Spain, right behind Camp Nou and Santiago Bernabéu. Now, here's the kicker. They did all of this for just 15 million euros. Putting that in perspective, stadium projects usually cost hundreds of millions of euros, but this transformation, a total bargain. It's like buying a luxury sports car for the price of a used hatchback. So yeah, La Cartuja has gone from an afterthought to a World Cup-ready wonder in record time. Talk about a glow-up. Let's be real, this isn't just some cosmetic surgery for La Cartuja. It's a full-on transformation inside and out. The stadium's spirit is completely changing. Gone is the disconnected vibe of a stadium with a running track where fans felt like they were watching from the nosebleeds, far away from the action. Now La Cartuja is turning into a true football cauldron and is already starting to feel like a whole different place entirely. Picture this, the acoustics have been improved, meaning every cheer, every chant, every roar from the crowd will be crisper, louder, and more intense. The sightlines are tighter, making sure no matter where you're sitting, you're going to feel like you're right on top of the action. And the noise? Well, one journalist captured it perfectly when they said, the roar felt more like a heartbeat than noise. That's the kind of atmosphere La Cartuja is building. It's no longer a place where football feels distant. It's where it feels alive. And here's the weird part, La Cartuja still doesn't have a permanent resident. I'm not talking about any haunted ghosts, no spooky stuff here. But this stadium is still kind of a nomad. Right now, it belongs to Sevilla FC and Real Betis, but only for a short time. Both teams are temporarily moving in while their own stadiums get upgrades. For Betis, it's from 2025 to 27, and for Sevilla, they'll take over from 2026 to 28. So here's the big question. What happens after that? Will La Cartuja finally get its permanent home team, or will it continue to be a stadium without a true identity? It's hard to say, but one thing is for sure. With all the upgrades, La Cartuja is ready for its next chapter. Whether it's hosting international events, becoming a permanent home for one of the Seville giants, or even finding a brand new purpose, the future of this stadium is wide open. Who knows what happens next? Keep watching. Some people think La Cartuja should become Spain's new national stadium. They want it to be a place for big finals, a home for the national football team, and a spot for international tournaments, supercopas, and concerts. It would be a place where Spain could show off its sport and music events, but not everybody's into this idea. Sevilla FC and Real Betis are the two top football teams already in the city, and some think a 75,000-seat stadium might be too much for Seville. They also wonder if there is need for all that space, especially if there aren't enough big events to fill it. Madrid and Barcelona aren't too happy either. Both cities already have huge football stadiums, Santiago Bernabéu in Madrid and Camp Nou in Barcelona. The idea of Seville becoming a big football center in Spain, well, that doesn't sit well with the teams and fans from Madrid and Barcelona. They're used to being the heart of Spanish football, and they don't like the idea of sharing the spotlight. This debate is a mix of politics and regional pride. It's not an easy issue, but there are strong opinions on both sides. But here's the surprising part. La Cartuja has already won. Why? Because after all the years of uncertainty, it now has a purpose. It's no longer just a giant empty stadium. It's a key part of Spain's World Cup plan. The stadium is hosting football finals and giving Sevilla FC and Real Betis a place to play while their own stadiums are getting fixed. It's helping both teams when they need it most. La Cartuja's story isn't just about being a failure anymore. It's about finding a new role and being useful. And the best part, it's doing it all without having to be torn down and completely rebuilt. It's been through ups and downs, and now it's getting a chance to shine. That's what we call a comeback. But wait, there's more. Just when you thought La Cartuja was done showing off, Phase 2 of the renovation is already on the way. This next step is even bigger. The budget, a cool 100 million euros. Yeah, that's quite a sharp jump from the 15 million euro budget that they spent in the first phase, but the upgrades are on a whole different level now. So, what's coming? A brand new roof. No more sunburns or rain delays. A modern, sleek exterior that actually looks like it belongs in this century. Redesigned interiors to make everything feel more comfortable, stylish, and fan-friendly. Once this second phase is finished, La Cartuja won't just be good for Seville, it will be world-class. We're talking about a stadium that could easily stand behind some of the best in Europe. And here's the kicker. It's still cheaper than building a whole new stadium from scratch. Let's put that in perspective. Sevilla FC's future stadium rebuild, that's going to cost hundreds of millions. Real Betis' renovation, another 100 million euros. And neither of these clubs is starting from a blank slate. They're just updating what they already have. But La Cartuja, it's getting transformed on a smaller budget with no regular team holding it back and a total flexibility to become whatever Spain needs it to be. Honestly, looking at how much they've done with just 15 million euros so far, this whole thing feels like the steal of the millennium. A smart, efficient upgrade that's turning a forgotten stadium into one of Spain's most valuable assets. But who's paying for all this? Most of the money's coming from the Andalusian government. They believe this stadium will bring a lot more money than it costs. How? Through tourism, events, media attention, and of course, soccer. Let's break it down. The 2030 World Cup is a big deal. If La Cartuja hosts matches, millions around the world will get to see it. That's huge exposure for Seville. Right now, the stadium won't sit empty. Sevilla FC and Real Betis are going to use it while their own stadiums are getting fixed up. That means the stadium is going to get used regularly for the next few years. Concerts also bring in loads of money. Big stars can fill up 70,000 pretty easily. That means ticket sales, food, drink, and hotel stays. Hosting games for Spain's national team or finals like the Copa del Rey brings fans, pride, and tourism to the city. And here's the smart part. Fixing La Cartuja is way cheaper than building a whole new stadium. Today, building a top stadium can cost hundreds of millions of euros, but La Cartuja is getting a full upgrade for much less, 15 million for Phase 1 and 100 mil for Phase 2. That's still less than the price of certain football players. What started as a wasted stadium is now turning into a smart move. It went from a money problem to a money maker, and it's only getting started. Let's be honest, this could have ended pretty badly. For years, La Cartuja looked like a huge mistake, a giant stadium with no team, no purpose, and no future. Some wanted to even tear it down. Others laughed at how much money was spent on it, calling it a ghost stadium or even El Elefante Blanco, the white elephant. But then something strange happened. A mix of timing, luck, and good decisions brought it back from the dead, like a movie comeback story. Euro 2020 moved games to La Cartuja when Bilbao couldn't host. Copa del Rey finals came back to the stadium. FIFA picked Spain to co-host the World Cup in 2030 and La Cartuja was ready. A clever, low-cost renovation plan kicked off, and politicians finally said, let's fix this place and make it work. Now, La Cartuja isn't just standing, it's thriving. It's being used by two big La Liga clubs. It's hosting finals and concerts, one of the biggest tournaments in the world. Sure, it never got the Olympics, the original dream, but it might just host a World Cup semifinal. That's a pretty good trade. More importantly, after decades of confusion and emptiness, La Cartuja finally has a purpose. It's not a joke anymore. It's part of Spain's future. Not bad for a stadium that was nearly forgotten. From Olympic dreams to almost getting torn down and now a national icon, La Cartuja's comeback is no accident. It's about redemption, smart planning, and a little bit of magic. If this ghost stadium can rise again, maybe anything's possible in football. We're committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to enjoy more visionary builds. Thanks for watching and see you next time.